Welcome everyone to Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. Today I'm going to be doing a different video from what you're used to on my channel. It's going to be a tutorial of how to get going in the Airbus A320, all the way from the world map with no flight plan to we're going to start up the plane and enter the flight plan into the computer. Future videos will come which will involve the engine start and the rest of the flight, but today we're just going to look at starting from the menu and getting everything programmed in ready for you to go. Now I want to first mention that I'm not a real-life pilot, and I also don't claim to know everything a real-life pilot does know. This is just going to be a general guide that you could follow that will get you into the air with a proper flight plan to follow. But by all means it might be different than real airline procedures, so don't take this as any kind of real-world advice. So now to get started with the actual flight planning, we're going to be using a program called Simbrief, which I would highly recommend more than the in-game flight planner here. It's completely free to use. It's made by a company called Navigraph, which also provides charts, which for the charts you'll be paying a monthly subscription, but like I said, Simbrief Planner is fully free to use. You can use it on the browser and it's going to look the same, so feel free to follow it that way. And then you can download the flight plan and import it into your game, but I would recommend downloading their application called Navigraph Hub, and in that app you can download an integration and have it completely into the game here. So once you have it installed, you'll see in the EFB we have Simbrief Dispatch right here. So we'll click on that and we'll make sure you're on new. And now we're going to create our flight. So this will look daunting at first. We'll go over just the necessary components. There's a lot here that can make things a lot more detailed if you'd like to really get deep into it, but you don't need to know everything that you're looking at here. So for the airline, for now, we're just going to put CSG. Feel free, if you're flying a certain airline, you have their livery, just Google the airline name and ICAO after it, and you'll get their code. And we'll put 0000. And we're going to be departing from Toronto Pearson to CYYZ. Make sure it's the ICAO code, so search up the airport name you like and the ICAO, which is 4-digit. Otherwise you'll have that 3-digit code you're used to. And we're going to be going to Chicago O'Hare, which is KORD. And we don't need to worry about our alternate right now, we can have that auto. You could set that manually if you'd like. That's just where if you can't land at O'Hare, what airport you're going to be landing at as an alternate. Depart time we'll keep just as it is. If you created this flight plan hours or days ago, you could press this refresh button and it will update it to just ahead of the current time, because it assumes you're going to be making the plan and then flying it right away. Now we'll move down to aircraft info. We don't need to worry about this editor or anything. That's for if they don't have a plane in the game. You're going to click aircraft type, and you're going to find what aircraft type you're flying. Now, of course, this looks very complicated, but there's a guide on their website which has which planes are which code. But for us, we're going to go to an A320, which for an A320, you can see here, it's right here, A320. But then you're going to see A320N, and that's actually the code for the A320neo. So we're going to do that one here, A320N. And then once you choose it, you're going to see default on the right here. So since we're playing base game right now, we're not going to be flying with the fly-by-wire or the any builds. We're just going to be using the default aircraft. Now any builds did help with this aircraft, but that's for when you're flying in 2020 when you have their dedicated any builds plane. So we'll keep all these the same, the climb same. This is your cost index, which we'll keep at auto. Yeah, we'll keep everything here the same. You don't need to worry about these things for now. Even all of this stuff, if when you get deeper into simming, you can understand what all of this means. But all of it's filled in. That's all you need to worry about. Everything's on auto. It tells you here your route is valid. So that's all you need to worry about. And then you come up here to do generate. And this will be the same on browser if you're using it. You can generate. And then, like I said, you'll have to download the flight plan. And then you'll come into the game and load the file. But for us, since we're already in the game, we'll just do import route, and you're just going to let the game do its thing. It'll say please wait, so just don't worry about anything. If you try to interact with it, it might fail. So now it says it's been imported, so we'll just close the EFB, and you can see here the route you just made is fully into the game. We're leaving Toronto Pearson, has the departure, the cruise, and the arrival is all set. So now coming into Toronto Pearson, we're going to want to set our actual departure location, as it's going to default to the runway, as you can see. Now, if you're playing on VATSIM, this is absolutely required. And if you're not, it's not required, but obviously if you want to follow the startup video and fly realistically, you would start at the gate, not right on the runway. So let's just choose one of these. Let's see, there's a medium gate. Here we go. One of these medium gates here. And you set as departure. And that's not going to mess your flight plan up. And then we'll press start flight at the bottom. And here we are at Pearson Airport. Just letting the game fully load in. Now it's snowing. We are on live weather and live time. So this is what it looks like here right now. Very lovely. Rain and snow. So we'll say we're ready to fly. And of course, we'll make sure the ground power unit right here is plugged in. So that's perfect. We're not going to do a free pre-flight right now, fully inspection, but we're going to take off what we need to take off, which I believe is just the covers and the chocks for this aircraft. So let's hop in now. Alright, now that you're in the plane, I like to just zoom out a little bit. You're going to see everything is turned off. We do have a co-pilot, which I forget about since we're playing 2024. We'll just come down here and click on ground. Of course, we saw it outside, but you're going to want to make sure the ground power unit is plugged in. So it's green here, which is great. If not, you're going to just click that and it's going to request it, because we need some kind of power to start the aircraft. So now that we know it's plugged in, we'll come up to the overhead panel here. And here it is, external power. This is what you want to see. And it says avail, meaning it's available. Now, in Flight Sim, it often says available at a gate, even if it's not plugged in outside. So for realism's sake is why I said to make sure the ground power unit actually is activated. But realistically, you don't always need it to actually be there. So once it says avail, you're just going to click on that, and that turns it on. And as you can see, here comes the aircraft to life. Everything is turning on. It's doing its self-test, which will take a max of 40 seconds. And that means everything is powered now, but it's only using the ground power unit. We're not making any power ourselves. So to do our first set of checklists here, we're going to come up here, and we're going to do the left side first. So you come down and see, is there anything you need to do from top to bottom. So first you need to align your IRS. That's what tells the plane where it is. And we're going to turn that to nav. And they take about 7 minutes to align. Then we're going to come down and we're going to turn crew supply on. It's called extinguishing the light. So anytime you see a light on, you want to look at why it's on. So faults, they're okay for now. Crew supply, though, it had a light on, so we turn it off by pressing it, which is turning the crew supply oxygen on. And then we'll come down. We'll see, okay, anything here. Here's our fuel pumps. We don't need those right now. For our batteries, we do need these. So let's turn our batteries on. And then we'll keep coming down. Here's our air conditioning. We don't need to worry about that right now. And then our lights. So we're going to start with turning our emergency lights. These are the emergency exit lights in the cabin to arm. We'll be turning the no smoking light, which also could be a no portable devices light, on. Our seatbelt sign on. And then our navigation and logo lights on the outside on. And our wing lights on. Once we come down here, you'll see the systems have turned on, but it says heading map not available. And that's just because the IRS have not aligned yet. So that's not a problem. You don't need to worry about that. So although it's already set for us, next you just want to make sure your panel lights are all visible. So down here, we move our thing out of the way. You'll see here are your floodlights, which if I turn them, so I zoom out, you'll see it's a little, oh, you'll hardly see them. Little lights that come on here. So usually in the night I like to turn them on like 5%, like very minimal. And then here's your panel lights for the bottom panel. So you can see everything lighting up there. Generally we'll keep it pretty high just in the sun or in the night. But in the midday you don't really need it. You're going to make sure the top panels are all fine as well. Now these are very hidden, but these little dials under here are your autopilot lights. One is for the back panel, and this one is for the screen up here. And then same thing over here. These are your display brightnesses, so you want to make sure they're set. and your navigation display and your primary flight display. This is your floor light. That will be down here. And then you have your entire cabin light. If it's nighttime, it's going to be this switch here. You can see I can change it to dim or bright. But we don't need that on right now. And then you'll be able to see what you're doing when you set up the rest of the flight. So first you're going to want to come over to your EFB. And you're going to want to make sure you get all your things hooked up that you need. So we'll turn the jetway on. And we'll do catering and luggage. And we'll get the fuel truck, which I believe on this plane is in the payload. And we can just enter the fuel ourselves. So you're going to want to click Simbrief here. And now it's loaded the flights, the weights that Simbrief has requested, the fuel that you need to get to your alternate, plus doing your holding and your extra fuel that you need. And click Apply Load. And that's just going to actually put it into the plane. And you can choose instant, fast, which is up to 5 minutes or up to 40 minutes. Now, depending on how much fuel you actually need to put in, it'll depend on the actual time it takes. So for now, we'll just do fast. And then the loading will begin. You can see it needs about 1 minute and 30 seconds left on fast. Sorry, I just cut because I realized that in this aircraft, I am used to flying the fly-by-wire aircraft. This is not just fuel, this is your payload in general, so it's also loading the passengers at the same time. So next we're going to want to put the flight plan into the aircraft. And for that, you're going to come down to what's called the MCDU. And you can see it here. And we're going to start from left to right and do what we need to do here. So here we're going to start on performance. And you'll see this is asking for our takeoff performance speeds. That's how you get your V1, V-rotate, and V2. So if we come over here, again, this is how you actually are going to calculate those speeds. If you could click on takeoff, you'll see this somewhat confusing looking menu if you don't know what it is. But luckily it's very, very easy to use. You just press sync and it's going to sync the weather conditions here. And then you need to go to payload and see the live gross weight, which is 61,727 kilograms. Come over here, let's enter that in here, 61,727 kilograms, and calculate. So you see if I press calculate, it's going to enter the performance information here. It's going to show you a little diagram of where on the runway they are. And you're going to see here V1, V rotate, and V2. So 145, 145, 147. We're going to come in here, enter these numbers so we're clear. This is the scratch pad. It's what you're currently typing in. We're going to clear the warnings here. And we're going to click 145, 145, and 147. And the next thing we need to do is enter the flaps configuration that we'll be taking off with, which we'll put 1. Since it's the first flap configuration, it's not 1 degree. In a Boeing, you're entering how many degrees it is, but in an Airbus, you're just entering the number of the configuration, which will be 1. And then we can move on to the next page. So that's init, initialize, and this is where we're going to get really into the flight plan. So first of all, you can enter all these things yourself, or you can press init request. So first you'll do that. And you see now it's taken our flight plan from Simbrief and put it into the aircraft. Now we still want to go through and check everything, but this is just an easy way to actually have it all entered, and we just need to make sure it's right. So you can see our departure and arrival airports are right. Our alternate is, I believe that's Milwaukee Mitchell. And our cost index, which is basically how much, it's the ratio of how much fuel we're going to use to how fast we're going to fly, essentially, how much it will cost. So it's 47, which we left it on auto, so it calculated that number automatically. We're going to go to the next page of initialization, and here it's going to ask for our 0 fuel weight, so just click this and it's automatically going to be calculated. And our block fuel weight we're going to get from our flight plan. So this is just telling the computer the fuel calculations. So you press tab, you bring up your EFB, and again, if you don't see Simbrief, or if you see something else, you can go to here, Simbrief dispatch. And this is the flight plan that we made. And now you notice we're on the view tab now. So on this flight plan, you're going to see block fuel right here, 5.368. So we're just going to round it and we want to round it up. So we're going to do 5.4. We're going to come over to the right button again to go to the next page, and you can see it's the first page again. So we only had these 2 pages in it to tab. So that means you can move on to the next one. We don't need to go to data. So if you come now, you're at flight plan. So here you go, you see all the flight plan has been entered in, but we're still going to make sure everything is right. So you're going to come all the way to the top, which keep in mind, you're going to be using the reverse arrows here. Down will actually go up will actually go down. So if you see here, CYYZ, that's our departure. We're going to click on the airport, and now you see it's brought up a page related to it. Now on Simbrief, you're going to want to find your route, which is this right here. Now if you know nothing about how to read a route like this, I'd recommend watching a more detailed video on it. But in general, you're going to see your departure and arrival. You're going to see what's called a SID, a Standardized Instrument Departure, as the first thing here, the GoPup 4. That's the departure we're taking from the airport. And at the end here, next to your arrival, you'll see what's called a STAR, which is a Standardized Terminal Arrival, and it's the Wind 2. So we're going to be using the GoPup 4 when we leave, and the Wind 2 on our arrival. And then we're not going to focus in this video too much about what's in between here. This is a very short route, so you don't see much, but that's a little more in depth that I'm not going to worry about too much in this video, since we only need the program and the departure and arrival, and the rest will be automatic. So if we click here on departure, remember if we're on flight plan, we'll click on the airport, click on departure, and now we're going to choose what runway we're taking off. So you'll see here it's CYYZ/05. Let's go. Remember, up arrow is down, so up. Here it is, 05. And now it's asking what SID we're going to take, which remember it's a Standardized Instrument Departure. It's the GoPup 4. So let's scroll down and see if we see that there. Here it is. So let's choose that, and then what transition are we going to use? So I should have actually said that as well. This is a transition to whatever the middle of the route is. It's how you get from the SID to the cruise route, and in this case we're using the hockey transition. Very fitting for Canada. So let's choose the hockey, and then we have it all entered, so we're going to press insert. And then we're going to go all the way to the bottom of the flight plan until we see the arrival. Here we are, KORD. And we're going to basically do the same thing. We're going to click on that and click arrival. And then what approach are we doing? Of course, it's going to be the runway number, but also the type of approach. So here we're doing runway 27 Charlie, and we're going to be doing ILS. So let's go down to 27 Charlie. Here we are, ILS. And that is asking us if we have a STAR, which remember it's the Wind 2. So let's see if that's here. And here it is, Wind 2 at the bottom. And if we have a transition, which if you look at the next point, it's FNT. So let's click on that here and insert it in. So now the flight plan is technically fully entered in here. If you'll see, there's something that says flight plan discontinuity. So let's just go to the very top first, which we are at. And we're going to come up here, and we're going to view our flight plan on the navigation display. So switch over here to plan mode. This dial changes what mode your navigation display is in. So let's switch to plan. And I like to keep it on for this 10 nautical mile range. So as you'll see, now we're centered on the airport, not the aircraft, because we're on the very top here. So if I press the up arrow, I like to zoom out a little so you can see both. Press the up arrow, it's going to move to the next point, and it's also going to move this to the next point. So we're already starting off though with the flight plan discontinuity. So let's take a closer look to see why we have this discontinuity. So on here we just see the approach. So in here we just see the departure. We're leaving at runway 5 and just flying straight out. So in this case we do want to actually increase our range so we can see what's going on. And you can see here's our waypoint, Kedzie, and we're continuing on, but these lines do not match. We're basically holding, we're taking off, turning slight to the left, and holding that just indefinitely. I could zoom all the way out, and we're just holding that heading. So let's go see why that's happening. So for this, you're going to need the chart for the departure. So GoPup 4, if you remember, that's the departure. So it's going to have a chart that relates to it to explain everything about it. So there's multiple ways to look at charts. I would recommend searching up some free methods online. I think there's something called like ChartFox, which is free, but today we're going to be using what's called Navigraph. And it's, like I said before, the company that makes Simbrief. So this is paid per month. It's not too expensive, but it's not in everyone's budget, of course. So we're going to click on this, and it is integrated into the game, which is convenient, and has what's called the moving map feature. So you can actually see yourself on the charts and on the map. So when we're in Navigraph, we're going to import our flight and import from Simbrief. And here's our flight here. So let's just download that. And now our flight's loaded in. And you can see it's fully in the plan here. You can see it, the whole route. And if we zoom in, you're going to see we're taking off from 05, and it connects itself, in this way to Kedsi. But we need to figure out how we're actually supposed to enter that into the computer. So if you look here, here's some pinned charts at the bottom. It's automatically selected charts it thinks is going to be useful on our route. But you can also come down to this icon, which is the airports icon. Search any airport for the chart, or it knows these airports are in our flight, so you can press the chart icon, which is this icon. So we go to Toronto, and we could do SID, which is the instrument departures, like we said, and we can find the GoPup 4 on here. Now I know it's already pinned on here since we need it, so we're just going to select it from there, and we're going to hide this menu. And it didn't work there, so let's click on it. Okay. So here we are on the standardized instrument departure of chart of GoPup 4. So it can look really confusing. There's a lot of information here. We're just going to look at some simple stuff. So first we're going to zoom in to see how they connect. And you can see there's our issue. They don't actually physically connect. You take off, turn to a heading of 047, and then it just holds and it doesn't connect. So how do we know how to connect those? So we're going to come down here to the instructions. We zoom in. Here we are, runway 5. So unless otherwise assigned by ATC, climb heading 057 to 1000. Then climbing left, turn 047 as we saw, or as assigned, expect radar vectors to Ketsi, or as assigned, then proceed via directed route. So we actually have to get vectors. We're not going to have a flight plan that just connects us. ATC will have to vector us to that point. So for now, that's a discontinuity we can leave in the system, since it's not supposed to be automatically connected. So let's just press tab and close our EFB for now. And we're going to go through the rest of the flight plan to make sure there isn't discontinuities that we don't want. So I'm going to bring it down to, let's say 20 actually. Remember, zoom out so you can see both. Now let's start pressing the up arrow, moving on to the next waypoint and watching what happens here. So now we're on Kedsi. Keep pressing. We're just going to make sure that it doesn't say discontinuity here and that we physically don't see a disconnection on the map. I'll keep clicking through. Looking good. But here we are at the hockey transition afterwards. We have a discontinuity to the next waypoint. So we'll just clear this and it'll connect it to. There we go. And keep moving on. All the way down to the end of the flight plan. You can see we have another one here. At the wind 2 arrival, we have another discontinuity. So let's just pull up the chart for that and see if we can figure out why. So here it is, automatically pinned for us. But it also would be if you went to airports and charts and star, you'd be able to find this. I apologize if the video keeps cutting. I'm still quite sick, so I'm coughing and just cutting those out, obviously. So if we look at the arrival, I know this can look quite confusing. There's lots of different transition points that come into this arrival, so it kind of explains how to connect to it, but we already have that in the computer. If we look here, our problem is after BAM waypoint. So how do we get from there to the actual runway? So let's look for that point near the end here. And here we are, BAM. So you can see it just continues, holds that heading. There's no further instructions, just like our departure had. So let's look at, again, the instructions of why that happens. We are landing on runway 27 Charlie, so that's the instructions we want to look for. And here it is, 27 Charlie. So it's included in this instruction. So let's just get to the point where it's explaining how to get to BAM, and then after BAM, then on track 273. expect radar vectors to final approach course. So similarly to the SID, we don't actually need to clear this because they're going to radar vector us. Now, of course, this is the route we chose for the video. I didn't plan this in advance. Often, you don't have either of those issues. You have approaches that connect and arrivals that connect. I've had it almost every time, maybe one. So this is, I guess, a good example. But I wouldn't say it's often that you have discontinuities like this and radar vectors required. But it's a good example of when you should keep them in and not just always clear them. But again, this is flight sim. You often can just clear many discontinuities and it will find a way to connect the waypoints, and then you don't have to worry about that. But I wouldn't do that if you were in VATSIM or something like that, because of course they will radar vector you if it's required. So now if we continue going down, there's our approach and everything else looks good all the way into the runway. So obviously we'll need radar vectors to get to this point, but we'll be coming in just fine. So let's press tab to close that. And now that our flight plan's good, let's bring it back to nav. I like to do nav and 10 when I'm on the ground. And once I get to the runway and all lined up, I'll switch over to arc, which provides you with more of a forward-facing view. And also traffic alerts and whatnot. So let's keep it on nav for now. Some more things you're going to want to do is now set up your autopilot. So we're going to look at something that I normally do when I'm setting my performance speeds. But let's click on performance and look at our takeoff speeds again. Our V2 is 147, so we're going to want to set that in the panel here. And now it's different for each airline, but I typically go 10 knots above, and that is pretty standard. So 147, we're going to set our automatic speed to 157. And then we need the runway heading for this. So let's open our charts again. We'll be using the MOTS. And let's go to our 10.9. That's our airport info chart. Again, this will be available through the normal menu. You can click on the airport, whether in your flight plan, click on that, or search the airport. This is just easy because you can pin charts yourself, but Navigraph is very smart and it typically pins the ones that you need. So here we are. Here's Toronto Pearson. I know it's very complicated looking. It's a big airport. So anyways, here we are. Here is runway 05. And we're going to want to know the runway heading of it. So right here where it says 05, it tells you the heading right there. 057. So let's go to heading and program in 057. So it's going to automatically hold our runway heading. Of course, we have to change to 047 not long after. If you remember in the departure plate, 057, but for now we want the runway heading on here. And then the altitude is what the initial altitude that you have to climb to, that ATC assigns, or that is assigned on your departure. We're going to see what ATC would like us to do. So let's tune ATC at this point. We'll make sure our radio is on, which in this aircraft it is automatically on with the rest of it, but in the 2020 base game A320 it is not. In the fly-by-wire one it is. So you have to make sure everything is working here. So you want to be on VHF1. You're going to make sure this is lit up call and the volume is turned up so you can actually hear the radio. So everything's automatic though, you're good to go. So we're going to open our ATC panel, which on 2024 the default key is \, which is underneath your backspace key. And we're going to tune the clearances radio. So I already am on that, but let's just click on ground to show you how to do that. You're going to look here and see Tune Toronto Clearance. So you want that. You can see it's automatically tuned for you. And scroll down to request IFR clearance for instrument flight plan.
Toronto clearance delivery Airbus Charlie. Foxtrot Kilo India Romeo IFR to O'Hare ready to copy.
Airbus Charlie. Foxtrot Kilo India Romeo is cleared to O'Hare Airport as filed. Expect runway 05 maintain 700 feet. Departure frequency is 127.575 squawk 4571.
We'll acknowledge by reading back. And it's very low, but we'll set our altitude to the altitude they told us, 700 feet. So let's go to 100 increments and do 700. That's where we're going to climb to initially.
71 Airbus Charlie. Foxtrot Kilo India Romeo.
Airbus Kilo India Romeo readback is correct. Contact ground on 122.825.
So you'll see the other thing they mentioned was the squawk code. Squawk code is the number that ATC uses to identify you on their radar. So let's come down here. Let's not set the flaps, my bad. And we're going to enter our squawk code. So they said 4571. And that's going to be in this panel right over here by the first officer. So you see we're already on 4571, but if you weren't, you can clear it here, wherever you're at, in 4571. I just clicked the flaps, so that didn't work. There we go. At this point of the setup, when I'm doing a normal pace, it's generally when passengers are nearly done being loaded, or they are done. And in this case, they've been done for quite a while, since we're doing this slowly. So I would start on my APU, and that's going to be our auxiliary power unit. So if I switch to exterior view, you'll see there's a little exhaust port at the end. Almost all airliners have an APU, so it's a small jet engine inside the tail of the plane, and that's just like a generator. It starts up like a normal jet engine, and it provides compressed air and power to the aircraft when you don't have an external power unit like this, and you use that to get the actual main engine started. Now obviously we need power to get that started, which is why we have the external power unit. So we're going to come inside and start our APU, which on the Airbus it's very simple. We're going to come up here and first turn on all of our fuel pumps. So we're going to go across and press all of the lights that you see off. So now they're on, all our fuel pumps are running. And we're going to come down, oh, bit of lag there. We're going to come down and start our APU. So here's the APU master switch. So we're going to press that on, wait a few seconds, and then press the starter. And now, how do you know it's actually on or running? We'll come down to our center displays here. And these buttons down here are what you can press to choose what's on this display. So we already have APU up since we're just starting it. But say we are on the air condition tab. Let's press APU, and you can see the APU status here. So you can see it's starting to wind up here. We just need to wait till it gets to 100%, and it'll say available. If we go in the external view, you can actually hear it starting up here. See the exhaust coming out. So we're going to start to generate our own power, and we're not rely on the ground power unit. So you see it takes some time, but now it says avail. It's 100% started. So we'll look up here on the overhead panel again, and we're going to want to turn APU bleed on, which is right here. What that does, it bleeds the the compressed air, which I mentioned it'll be providing, to the aircraft. So you can hear the air conditioning is really picked up now, since it's being provided by the APU. And also it provides the compressed air to the engines to start them. So we need that on. Let's also, this is when I usually turn on my window heat and my anti-ice, which due to the weather outside, we'll turn our engine anti-ice on, or a wing anti-ice, and then we'll look back down here. Let's go over to our EFB, and we're going to disconnect all our ground unit devices here, so we can first turn our ground power off now that we have our APU started, and it is available, you can see. Let's turn our ground power off. So you can see nothing happened because we're already relying on our own power. And now we can tell them to disconnect it. And we can also toggle our other pieces of equipment here, like the jetway. If it wants to work here. There we go. And what else do we have connected still? So the other devices have already left since they've already done their task, like luggage and catering. So you can hear we're fully disconnected now. You can hear the APU running. Our power is all on our own. We're good to go. So this is now when you would request your pushback, and you'd follow some further checklists to get the engine started, and on taxi you would then get ready for takeoff as well. So I appreciate you guys watching the first video in this series. If I missed anything or did anything wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm no real pilot. I just thought people have been asking, for some tutorial videos, and I do know generally how to get this aircraft going, so I thought it could be helpful for some people. So again, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one.